Yeah, I mean, it's Sunday morning. Jed York, that's the big news out of Santa Clara is that the San Francisco 49ers owner was arrested in East Palestine, Ohio, pled no contest to 2 misdemeanors, according to court documents, disorderly conduct, possession of a criminal tool, and also was initially going to be charged with engaging in prostitution, but that was dropped per Cron. So, look, it's interesting, because we were planning on coming in and talking about some of the great things that happened this weekend, some of the positive updates, 9 days until the Niners get set to head down under to Melbourne to take on the Rams. And instead, this is a bombshell that drops on our doorsteps on Monday morning.
Yeah, and, you, Kitty, and I were on the Vine, the thread last night, and Kittle coming off the PUP list, was a big positive. But I'll say this, because the great Tupac, rest in peace, I know they got the trial going on in Vegas, Evan. He said only God can judge. So I'm not here, nor can I judge one Jed York. But I will say this, Evan, and you tell me if I'm wrong or not even in the ballpark or this is invalid. Whatever went down, to see your owner a couple weeks before the opener in a mugshot, they put the whole fit on him. No, the orange jumpsuit suit on him, that's a bad look. That, regardless of where this goes, that's just a bad look for business. Especially, Evan, July 14th, and it wasn't a crime. Kyle Shanahan got into a, horrific car accident, and there were some questions, and they got through that, and that kind of was waning. It went away, and then here we are, and I'll ask you, Evan, on the Evan computer, how big of a distraction, or do you think this ranks as a distraction for the team? Because I know for me, before you answer, it's embarrassing.
Well, we're going to find out how much of a distraction it actually is when it comes to football. I think the Kyle Shanahan one had more of a direct impact because you weren't sure if he was critically injured or if there was going to be some lingering effects from the concussion. But this is an incredibly anti-Jed York thing to happen. I don't know what you think about the 49ers owner, but I don't view him as a Joe Lacob or a George Steinbrenner, a Jerry Jones.
Is that a diss or no? He just stylistically, he's not that.
This is not who he is. He's not in front of the mic. He's not in front of the cameras. He doesn't want it to be about him. And I think that in recent years, that's actually helped his stock go up within the fan base because it didn't really get off to a great start. It was probably at its low point after the firing of Harbaugh.
No doubt about it.
With the Jim Tom Sulas and the Chip Kellys and some of the choices that he made to help run this football team.
So he learned.
And until he got to Kyle Shanahan, people were not big fans of the Yorks. And then this happens, and it's interesting, Goo, because I think that his approval rating has done somewhat of a 180. And so for
me, it has too.
From a distraction standpoint, that's what I'm most interested to see how it's received by the fan base. Do people look at Jed York differently? He represents the 49ers, and he, along with Shanahan, you could even go back to the Ayuk debacle that's dated back for over a year now, and what's been happening off the field with the Niners. You're right. It's not a good look.
Yeah, and I'll give you, Evan, you knocked it out the park with the, I think he learned, from trying to, I won't call him, I'll use the word meddling, when Harbaugh was around, and he learned from that. So he had been in the background. And again, you and I talked, I asked you, how many NFL owners have gotten trouble off the field? And you said it, Goo, he's not the first. There are some examples.
Probably won't be the last.
Yeah, Mr. Kraft, shout out Mac and Cheese. But the bottom line is, I hear players all the time say, we have each other's back. And obviously this was a bad decision. But, yeah, and I'm looking at it now, just a mugshot. And, an NFL owner, you're going to jail or whatnot. I just want to know if this will be a distraction to the players on the field in their prep for their first game against the Rams. Evan, I want to look you dead in the face and tell the listeners I don't think it's going to be, but just like I told you, the boss and Kenny, this is not a good thing to have happened.
Well, especially when you're effectively 2 weeks away from starting the season. We were talking with the boss before the show, and the Bob Kraft situation was a little different because he was never, I believe, charged guilty.
Charges dropped.
Charges were eventually dropped and, was caught in a parlor in 2019 in Florida. And I think that was more of a stain, but that happened in February of that offseason between 2019 and 2020. This is happening just before the year. And so, I have to imagine that reporters, and whether they're national or local, they're going to be asking Kyle Shanahan how much impact this has on their team. They're going to be asking, maybe some team leaders, whether it's on or off the record, what's exactly going on behind closed doors. And again, for those who didn't see the news, yesterday, Jed York, owner of the San Francisco 49ers, CEO, controlling owner, was arrested in East Palestine, Ohio, is a little bit south of Youngstown, where he's from.
Yeah.
2 misdemeanors. To me, it's more of a stain, I think, than a major distraction. But I got to tell you, Goo, because this is what we're going to be talking about today. When an owner of a team gets shown in a bad light, that does reflect on their organization, because as much as Jed York hasn't wanted to be the face, his mugshot is the face of the Niners this morning.
No doubt about it. And, when you're the owner, you are it's your team. Nobody can tell you, you know what, Evan, you messed up. You need to do this. You need to do that. You're out. So I'm not even saying that's on the table, but him, being a big factor in regard to overseeing Kyle, overseeing John, and any player and their transgressions, I think it just hits different when you're the owner. Now, you talked about Kraft, and, people had jokes, and we watched that thing play out, but eventually the charges were dropped. So I say all that to say is I don't expect anything to change in regard to, once this subsides, to where Jed York's job is in jeopardy or him being around the team might wane. I don't expect any of that. We'll deal with it. They'll deal with it. And then you I know this sounds crazy, get back to normal?
Well, we're going to find out. I think it's fair to assume that he's going to face discipline from the NFL under the personal conduct policy. But the question is, how much discipline will he face? I don't imagine it'll be more than if a player went through what just happened. He's the owner of the team. And like you mentioned, the NFL did not punish Robert Kraft when he was charged with 2 counts of soliciting prostitution. But he also didn't plead no contest, and that's the difference in this situation.
Right. That's a good call, man.
I don't think it's going to be something along the lines of him, being forced to sell the team. And unfortunately, his uncle has had some experience with that, and we can get in some of the past discretions, some past issues from NFL owners. I don't think that this is near the top, but it certainly doesn't shine the 49ers in the light that the York family wants them to be. And, I don't think it's a coincidence that people on national shows might be staying away from this subject, that we're going to talk about this today. We're speaking about it because the Niners are in our backyard, but there's a lot of people that don't want to touch the story yet.
I was going to ask you, what's your number one thing why you think that is?
Well, because we don't have all the facts. But I do think that it's interesting that, look, that was the reason why apparently something like the Kyle Shanahan story wasn't discussed for 11 days. People talked about there weren't enough facts available, that they weren't exactly sure what was happening. There were legality issues. And the difference here is that he was arrested and obviously got booked because his picture's all over the internet right now. But it does make you think a little bit also, okay, well, like, what has been happening with the San Francisco 49ers?
Right.
Are their fans thinking about it?
No, and I think that matters. We were getting into that conversation, you, Steiny, and I, with Sabian and the Warriors, and how much does fan input matter. But I got to be careful here. He's a man. He made a mistake. It's embarrassing for the organization. No way around that. But I do wonder if I'm a player, because they had Kyle's back at every turn, because people were trying to me, shake a tree and get more information, and people start speculating, and that never, came to fruition. But the owner made a mistake, and if I'm a player, all you can do is kind of have his back in a sense. And you can say, well, what's that mean, Goo? I think we're going to get the standard answers when reporters ask certain players about this. But to go out and execute and ball and kind of have his back is how I see it.